Hey guys, welcome to Android 101. This is me, Siddhant, and today we'll be beginning with the very first chapter in learning Android, Introduction to Android Studio. Android Studio is a tool that is used to develop Android applications. It is a proprietary software by Google, just like Xcode is a program of iOS devices owned by Apple. So let us begin into knowing more about Android Studio. If you click on Android Studio after installation, this is the first screen that you will be seeing. So let's start by seeing all the options that we have in this software. The first one is to start a new Android Studio project. Second is to open an existing Android Studio project. The third is check out a project from version control. As many of you know that many developers across the world develop their applications and they leave it at a stage where they leave it open for the public to develop it on their own. So they put up these applications on platforms like Git, where you can download this project from there and start editing and making new developments on your own. So these are some of the options that you can choose from here. You have the option of profile or debugging an APK and importing projects, that is from Eclipse. Eclipse was earlier used to develop Android applications before Android Studio was developed. Since then, Google has come very far into making this platform very user friendly and easy to develop applications. Or you can simply import an Android code sample over here. Before we begin with that, we first need to get into Configure and get into SDK Manager. SDK Manager is the software of Android Studio that controls all the upgrades to the system. So let's get into SDK Manager. Here we will be able to see the first tab is SDK Platforms. In SDK Platforms, you can see that starting from 2.2 Eclair, there is every single platform tool available of Android until Android API 27, which is the latest API for Android Oreo. So make sure that whenever you're developing an application, you are developing it at the latest version so that newly launched phones don't have an compatibility issue with your application. So you can see that in my system I've already installed API 27 and API 26 and API 25 are partially installed. At some point of time, whenever you are trying to see samples from other developers, you might need to have other APIs too installed on your system because they might have developed their application on a lower API level. So you can choose to install whatever API is required as and when you're using the applications. Do not download all these APIs at once because they will take a lot of space in your system. Okay. Next is SDK tools. These are the tools provided by third parties and Google to run your applications. The first one that I recommend installing is Android SDK tools. The latest version right now is 26.1.1. The second is Google USB driver. This driver is used to connect your phone to the Android system so that you can test your applications directly on your phone instead of using an emulator. For those of you who do not know what's an emulator, it is a simulated version of an Android phone that runs on your computer whenever you try to test an application using Android Studio. It has pretty much the same features, the same application, and the same design that you would see on any normal phone, just that it is running on your computer instead of in your hand. So it's a very useful tool to test applications before passing them on to an actual phone. You may also use Google Play services for future applications where you will be implementing Google logins and other Google Maps and Google location features, which will be helpful using this service. Also, you would need to download the support repository for Constraint Layout. Constraint Layout is the latest layout that Google has launched. The Solver, Android support repository, which is at version 47 right now, and the Google repository at version 58. According to me, you will not need any other platforms for just immediate use. Also, you can update your Android emulator and Android SDK platform tools to the latest version. These are the SDK update sites that Google pre-installs into your system. These are places from where Google downloads all its update packages. So once you have updated this, on my system it's already updated. For your it might just take some time. Just click on OK and you're ready to start learning about Android Studio. So we get into start a new Android Studio project. The first field is an application name. So I'm going to give the name first application. The second field is the company domain. Now, company domain is actually the field by which every application is uniquely identified on the Google Play Store. You have to understand that there are lakhs and lakhs of applications on the Google Play Store with similar purposes. There are many duplicate applications and different versions of the same application. So, how is it identified differently for each user and each developer? This is how this is done. The first field, com for company, and then the second field, turtle-eye. Turtle-eye is my company. So you might be seeing that it's written as turtleeye.com, but if you direct your attention over here, you'll be able to see that it has taken the name com.turtleeye.first application. So it's a bit of a bug, you can say, in the application, but this is how it is written, turtleeye.com, and it gets rearranged as com.turtleeye. The name of your application without any spaces. You can choose your project location wherever you want to install this project. I have chosen a location, but it does give me a warning that you should not have any white space characters in the name of your folder. For us, this doesn't matter right now, so we're just going to proceed to the next section. Next. Now, the very first information that it wants from us is for phone and tablet, the minimum SDK that we are going to be supporting. Now, what is the meaning of this? Here, we are trying to say that for which version of the Android phone at a minimum level we are trying to develop the application. So as you can see that I cannot scroll beyond API level 14 Android 4.0 ice cream sandwich. This means that Google has forbidden any applications to be developed for a phone that is lower than API level 14. Now obviously you might be wondering why. Don't worry. Across the world there is no Android phone available presently today that is below API level 14. Okay, so we can assume that we can start with API level 14 or API level 15, which is an upgraded version of ice cream sandwich. Now you might choose a different API level based on some of the codes that is available only for latest versions. Not all the older models support the latest features that are present today in Android Marshmallow and Android Nougat phones. So let's assume that we are starting with an application API level 15, which is a safe option. We are not developing this application for Android Wear. So these are some of the versions of Android Wear devices. So we are not developing this. So we have not selected this. Also, these are some of the versions that is available on Android TV. So in case if you are developing your application for Android TV, then you can check this option or you can just let it be. Android Auto and Android Things, again, these are the different versions available. If you are making an application, you can select one of them. Let's go to next. Now here we see all the different starting activities that the application provides. Now we'll get into the details of activities in a later video. What I can tell you right now is that this is the type of screens that are predefined and pre-available on Android Studio. These are some of the screens, like you can see full screen activity. That means your app that is going to be starting with a full screen page. You can design as and how you please. There's a Google AdMobs ads activity. So in case you're using Google Ads on your application, then you can easily use this activity and it will pre-fill the necessary and required codes. There's Maps activity, login activity. So these are just some of the suggestions by Google. let's say for in this case, when Google has designed a login activity, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use this activity. You can design your own activity and you can rename it anything that you want. You don't necessarily need to rename it as login activity only. Okay. And in case if you just want an empty canvas to draw upon, then you can start with an empty activity. Do not choose add no activity, because then you won't be starting with any work. Sorry. Also, another common activity that is used is the basic activity. What this has is a three dotted button. If you can see, this three dotted button is a menu button, and also a plus button right here at the bottom of the page. This button can be used to trigger any user actions. In our case, we will be starting with an empty activity. So let's give the name to this empty activity. We can call this splash activity. Now the name splash might seem a little interesting to you. This is usually the name of the very first starting screen of any Android application. This is the name splash activity is the name that app developers use for the page where they are going to be branding their app. They can show a logo of their app. They can show a very minimalistic animation of their application. This is just to give a very good UI feel. So we are going to be just making a simple splash activity. You can see there is a tickmark option saying generate layout file. Layout file means that you are developing the front end view which a user is going to be seeing. The activity file is the file where you are going to be writing your codes. The layout file is the one which is going to be seen by the user. Also, we have tickmarked backwards compatibility. That means we are making it compatible for all older versions as well. Even though we are using the latest tools to develop this application, we don't want anyone to be left out. So this application will be supported on all the phones. Next, press finish. So now as you can see that some applications are being processed, because now Android Studio is preparing this application. It is preparing all the default codes. It is readying some structures, some folders, and some helpful tasks for me. You can see that there is an option of Gradle build running, and there is a progress bar being shown at the bottom of the screen. Don't try to start any coding before this step gets completed, because this may slow down your machine. Because when this is happening, your Android Studio is trying to download all the necessary software packages that is going to be required to run this basic application. An interesting mention about Android Studio system is that the entire world's code of every platform, every SDK, every tool is not downloaded at once into the system. As and when whichever code you might be requiring, let's say for example, you need to implement Google login into your application, the login code is not present by default into the system. Whenever you want to implement Google login, you will press a button, and then only the codes pertaining to the login feature will get downloaded into your application and get attached to it, thereby making this software very much light and easy to use. Before we get into the application, let's start understanding about the structure of Android Studio, how its structure is different from a normal MVC structure and how it helps in coding. Now, for those of you who do not know MVC structure, it is a model view controller structure that is being used by almost all the coding platforms for the simplicity of use of developing a code. Now, many might say this, but the truth is that Android is not based on an MVC structure. It has its own structure which it is developed so that users can develop their applications in their own easy way and not following the default MVC structure. Let's start understanding every options that we have. The very first thing that you can see on the left side is the project option, where I'm seeing this folders and files in a specific order that is pertaining to Android. Now this is not necessarily the order in which my files are being saved. If I want to see how my files are being saved, then I would have to open up a file where my code is being saved, which looks like this. This is how the files are saved in the folder. As you can see that it has created a folder by the name of first application, and this is the folder structure that where my files are saved. But if you see it in Android Studio, the look is a little different. It is showing me two major heads, app and Gradle scripts. Now the very first one, app, holds all the information related for the development of my application, the codes, the designs, the images, whatever I give into the application. The second section is Gradle scripts. Now Gradle scripts is the place where my software specifications are given. I'll get into that a little later. So if you just want to see the normal folder structure that we saw over here inside Android Studio, then you have an option of clicking here in the small drop down arrow, if you can see in near Android. You can click that and you can go into project view. So if you go into project view, you will be able to see the files in the normal folder structure that is available on your computers. For an easy use, you should always go into the Android mode. So if by default your system is not showing that, you can easily click here and go into Android mode. Let us start by number one, Gradle. The very first Gradle file, there are two Gradle files if you can see clearly. It's build.gradle and project, which says project first application. The second file is build.gradle module app. Now the very first one, project first application build.gradle file, is stored in the root directory of your application. So if you can see that this is my application structure, there is a file called build.gradle. Also, if I go into the folder app, there will be another file build.gradle. So these two files are there for very two specific important purposes. So the very first one, that is at the project level, it says that what are the two repositories that I am going to be using to run this application. One is Google, one is JCenter. What is the dependency that I'm going to be using? The dependencies mean what are the factors that my application is dependent upon. So here it says a dependency of com.android.tools.build Gradle 3.0.1. Now Gradle is the version of your compiler. So currently mine is updated to the latest version, that is Gradle compiler 3.0.1. Okay. So make sure that you see which Gradle are you running, because based on this your applications might be affected. Always try to run your code to the latest versions only. Second one, it is just a repeat of this, all projects. We can have multiple projects into the same application. So all my projects are currently supporting the repositories of Google and JCenter. You can ignore this task clean delete project line. The next file is the build.gradle module app. Now if you remember, module app is the build.gradle file that is available inside the app folder. You can see over here. Okay. So getting into that, this Gradle file looks a little different and has more codes than the first one. Let's start understanding this. The very first line says apply plugin com.android.application. Now our entire Android code, a software that we build, is based on the application level. It starts with an application and then enters into activity. Once we get into activity, I'll explain to you what is the meaning of application. Okay. Also, you will get an idea about this when we are learning about manifest. You see manifest over here. So when we get into that, you will get to know more about application. So starting with this, the first section that we have, let's see if you can see Android from year to year, there is some details written about this Android application. This pertains only to this project level. Okay, it does not apply to the entire application. It applies only to this project level. The very first one is compile SDK version. That means we are compiling our SDK file to the SDK version 26. If you remember, 26 is the version Oreo, Android Oreo, which is the latest version of Android running right now. Not all the phones have received the Oreo update till now. There are still maximum phones running on Android Nougat, but you have to develop your application to the latest platform so that as and when the Oreo update is launched, your application still supports on the Oreo phones as well. So this is a very neat trick by Google that even when the platform is launched, they put up the SDK version inside Android Studio months before the actual launch so that the developers can start updating their applications to the latest version. Okay. Now the compile version is 26. The default configuration that we are setting here is that application ID is com.turtleye.firstApplication. If you remember that this was the application ID that we set up during the first application naming time. Now the minimum SDK version is 15. That means we are targeting ice cream sandwich phones. The target SDK version is 26. That means we are targeting the system still Android Oreo. Now there is a difference between compile SDK version and target SDK version. We might be compiling to the latest version. Our compile tools are upgraded and latest till 26. But we might want to target our system to a lesser version. So we might just want till Android Nougat. So we just go to 25. We don't want our application to run on Android Oreo devices. So that is a user's choice as to how he wants his application to run. The moment I make any changes on this file, it first asks me to sync the file. So this is an important step in a Gradle file. Whenever you make any changes, even though if you just type a space, it will ask you to sync. Now the next option, so just get this back to 26 because we want our applications running on every phone. The next option is version code. Now version code here it is showing 1 and the version name is 1.0. There's a very important factor related to this. Version name is the version that is displayed on Android Play Store. So whenever you go to Google Play Store, it will show you what is the version of this application that is currently running on any system. And let's say if we get into Google Play Store, and we get into the apps, and let's say we check the very first app, Facebook Lite. So here you can see that it provides us with the version information as to which version is currently running. Now most of the times it is available on the mobile app, but sometimes it is available here as well. Okay, they might have moved it from here, but if you go into the mobile application of Google Play Store, then you will be able to see the version information that is associated with this. In case you don't have that, there is different websites that holds information about every single application available on the web. So there is this one site that I see is appbrain.com. This site has information about every application, the life of every application available on the web. So if we just go over here and we just try to see the statistics. So let's see, this is one application that is AppBrain app on market. You can type in any other application as well. So let's say if I type Facebook, it will give me the entire history of Facebook. So we was checking on Facebook Lite. You see, if we go here, we can see about every single version information. See, it's on which date which version was updated. So on January 6, 2018, version 75.0.0.37.188 was launched. Quite interesting, right? So many different minute level version updates being launched every single day by these giant applications. This is pretty much what you will have to do. So what we are seeing right here on this one, 75.0.0.37.188 is the version code. So every time you make an update to your application, if you want to launch that update in Play Store, you will have to update the version code. If you simply just keep the version code same and try to update the application, Google will not allow you to update that, because it will say that you need to tell us that what is the current version that you're running on. So let's say if the I've already launched an application on Play Store with version 1, so this time I will have to launch the application with version 2. Now I might change the version numbers based on how much I have changed in the application. If it's, let's say, a minor upgrade, then I can launch a 1.1 or maybe a 1.1.0. If it's a very major upgrade into the system that I have made, then I can go simply to directly version 2. Now the very same thing you can type in version name. Now version name is what gets displayed on the Play Store to a normal user. So for them, you can just type 2.0 or 2.3, whatever you feel. So these are two important fields that you have to keep in mind, which needs to be updated every time you want to launch a new version of the Android app on the Play Store. Now this is a test code that you can delete. This test code comes automatically after you start a new application. This is not required for our purpose. You can delete it. Now there is the next option of build types. Now, what is the meaning of build types? As you can see that the first one says release. Now this means that what are the facilities that I want in my application once it is being released for public use. So the very first one that I want is minify enabled. So that means I want my app to be compressed. As you can see that the default it is given as false. Whenever you're launching your application on Play Store, to reduce the size, you might want to put it as true. So this gets enabled only when you are building the final release version of your application. For all the normal runs, your app will not get minified. It will still be the uncompressed versions. So whenever you're running your applications on your phone, and if you try to see your application size and you see a very large size application, don't get worried. Once you go into the release mode, your app will get minified by itself. Okay. The second one is ProGuard. Now, if you can see right over here, the fourth file option inside Gradle scripts is ProGuard. So I'll just give you a brief about what is ProGuard. ProGuard is a obscuring tool that Android has provided. This means that once you have compiled your entire Android code, it obscures the code. It changes the names of your variables, your methods, your functions into a different name which is unreadable by any normal user. So if someone downloads your application APK on their phone and tries to decompile your code, they will not be easily able to know as to what code you have written. Otherwise, anyone could download any major application and just repost that application by their own name. So ProGuard is the one that compresses, combines, and obscures your code. So how it redefines the code in actual, it creates a map file inside the system by which it understands that what are the actual codes relating to the obscured codes. Okay. Once we get into ProGuard file, we will be able to see a few more details about it. So this is a release build type. Similarly, you can also have a debug build type made on for your own purpose. So if you want to make a new build type, I'll tell you how it is done. If you can see that there is an option build variants given right here. So here you can develop a debug build variant and you can give the properties as how you want for this variant. Okay, and whatever information you give over here will get reflected into this Gradle script. But the final release version will only get implemented once you launch the application. Now the final and the most important part of this Gradle file is the dependencies. Now as I told earlier that Google downloads only the relevant codes that is required at the time of developing the application. So till now, since we have not added any additional features like let's say login, location, maps, camera, so Google has not added any codes related to that. It has just given us a few basic implementation codes. The first one is an include of libraries and directories folders and .jar code. Now this was used at the time of using Eclipse applications and importing other libraries into our project. So since let's say right now we are not including any other third party libraries into our code, we can delete this line. The second one is the COM Android support app compat v7 26.1.0. So if you can see that our compiled version is 26, so it has given us the option of version v7 26.1.0 as the version for developing this application. Second one, the implementation of the constraint layout. Now constraint layout has not yet been integrated with our support versions like the other layouts. I'll tell you more about the layouts in the upcoming videos, but now you can see that there is a constraint layout. Do remember that there are other layouts like linear layouts, relative layouts, frame layouts. So till now, to use constraint layout, you have to include the code separately. There is a test implementation of JUnit. Again, we are not doing a test implementation, so you can delete this line. Also, there are test runner systems that has been provided predefined, so you can delete these ones. And after doing this, we can do a sync now. So you can see that again Google has started processing some of the details at the bottom of the page, and you should just wait for this to get completed. So depending upon your system speed, it will take its time accordingly. Now there are some Gradle wrapper properties that we have. You should not touch this file. Whatever information that has been given over here, it is for system use. Okay. Next one is ProGuard file. So you can see that there are some information already provided which are safe inside hashtag comment files. So if you want to comment in line, you can use hashtag over here. So this is the file where you start writing the code in accordance as to how you want to use ProGuard. So there are some of the files that you might need to obscure. There are some of the files that you might need to prevent from being obscured. So this is what we write over here as to which files are necessarily needed to be obscured and which files need to be safeguarded from being obscured. Now, as and when you develop application and you get into the advanced stages, you will understand the meaning of obscuring and non-obscuring. Then there are a few other files: Gradle properties, settings.gradle, and local properties. These are just information files which are being used by the system. As you can see that local properties says where is the SDK location. That means this is the path where all your Android code, which is the system codes, are being saved. Okay. And local properties, this is including application. You don't need this further. Gradle properties, application. So we can close this. So we have pretty much covered everything inside Gradle scripts. Let's start with the next section, app. Inside app, there are three major folders: manifest, Java, and resources. Now these are the three major heads in developing the application. The first one and the very important one is manifest. Now, since every software system or any technology item that you buy, it has a manifest of its own. It describes what does this application do, how is it used. So this very same thing is done over here. Inside manifest, there is a declaration of every single activity, every single page that you are going to be developing into this application. So as you can see that the first line of manifest has the package name, which is com.turtleye.firstApplication. The next section starts with application. So if you remember that we discussed application inside Gradle, so the major package where Android starts is at an application level, and there are some of the properties that we write about this application. We want it to allow backup to true. The icon, so this is by the default icon that an Android provides every time you start a new application. It's a simple Android icon. If you want to see, I'll just show you the path. So you can see that this is an application icon. So once you run this test application on your phone, you will be seeing this application. So whenever you want to launch your own customized application, you will want to provide your own icon as well, and that path will be updated right here. Android label. So label is first application. So this is the name of the application that will be shown on your phone. So when you get into your phone's menu, this is the name that you will see regarding your app. Now if you click on this, see the data changes. It does not remain as first application, it changes into string app name. So now don't get worried, your data did not get changed and now your app will not look like string app name. It is simply a direct link to a strings file. So inside the resources folder, once we get into that, there is a strings file present inside values folder. So if you get in strings, there is a path given over here, app name, first application. So let's say if you want this application to be named as Siddhant, so then we just simply change the name over here, and inside Android manifest, the direct link to that file has been given at string app name. So by this it will automatically find out the latest name. A shortcut way to enter into that is press Ctrl on your keyboard and hover over this. So it will tell you that where is this application file, and if you simply do a left mouse click, it will take you to the file directly. If you want to know where is that file located, on the top of the page there is the entire flow path. So first application inside app folder, src, main, resources, values, strings.xml. Okay. Now the next one is round icon. So for the once we have given an IC launcher, which is there are different sizes of icons that we have. The next one is a round icon. Now this has been launched very recently into the latest version of Android, so that it can compare more itself with iOS based applications which have round icons. So these are the round icons that you can also design and provide to Google, so that if at any point of time Google decides to change the design of all the icons, you have both a square icon and a round icon available. Supports RTL true, that is right to left. So right to left meaning that Android applications in Arab language would be running as right to left. Their default locale on the phone is set to right to left reading. So this application is also supporting right to left reading. So if let's say your application is designed over here and it is downloaded by some person in the Arab country, so they will be able to see the application in their own format. Now there is Android theme, and you can again see that there is a direct quick link into the style folder. The earlier one was string folder, this one is the style folder, and style folder it goes to app theme. Now we will get into this app theme a little later. Once we reach into style, you can see that styles is right here inside values. So for now just remember that there is an app theme given as the main application theme. Now if you remember that when we were starting with this application, we had given splash activity. That was the very first activity that we had while starting this application. So that automatically got created and added into the application folder. Okay, inside the application tag, the splash activity is already present with some default values. What you can see is the first value is intent filter, Android name as main. If you remember that for every Java code, it requires the main function, at where it should start. So this main is very important. Do not rename this. The second category name that it has been given as launcher. So there are two options, default and launcher. So if a particular activity has the option of launcher, that means whenever this application gets clicked upon inside your menu folder, let's say on your app is inside your phone, you go inside your menu and you see this application icon of your app and you click on it, so this splash activity will get started. If I rename it to default, then this application icon will not be shown. It will try to cause an error at runtime because it needs a minimum of one launcher activity. let's say if I were to add another activity. Now, if you just remember, activity means the page. Every page of your application is like an activity. So we had added the splash activity. If I want to add a new activity, I would right click on app, new, and right here we have activity. And this time if I do a basic activity and I rename it as the login activity. The first one was splash, which is shown for the branding of my application. The second one is the login page that I have. So here you can again see that I have a tick mark option of launcher activity. I do not want this to be the launcher because I want the splash to be my launcher. This is the first screen that I want people to see before starting. So you can just simply give these details. The rest of the details are not important here, and you can simply do finish. So Android will again start building the grid, because what it is doing is it is trying to identify any, if it needs any new codes, it downloads them and presents you. So you don't have to worry about upgrading and downloading all the latest codes. You just tell Android what you want to do and it will just prepare it for you. So if you go into Android manifest once again, you should be able to see that there is another activity tag that got auto created, which is this time the login activity. There is a label field this time which has the name of the activity, a direct link to the strings file. If I click on this, it says login activity. Now this is recommended by Android that do not write the string names directly over here. We could also write, we could simply write login or maybe first, whatever we need. So Android says that do not use this. Instead, make a direct link to the strings file and give whatever information that you need over there. So let's say if I wanted a different file name over here, so we can just simply do strings name equals to login. So this is the name that will get used in the manifest file, and whatever I write over here, that is 1 2 3 4 5 6 A B C D, this is the name that will actually get displayed to the user. So I can use this login right here at string login. So you see that this is there. In case if I were to use a variable name that is not present, it will give me an error. Red means error. So I can simply go to login. Again, you can see that there is a theme provided over here. If you remember that there was a theme earlier inside the application tag, there was no theme inside the activity tag, but there's again a theme inside the login activity. Now why is that? Why is that? What is the difference that we did over here? If you remember that while choosing the splash activity, we had chosen an empty activity. Let me just show you once again. In the activity path, there is an empty activity. But while choosing the login activity, we chose a basic activity. Now there is some kind of design differences available that we will discuss at length after some time between these two activities. So because of this difference, there is a difference in the theme of this activity. That is why the empty activity required no theme apart from the default app theme. But the login activity required a theme of its own, that is app theme.no action bar. So that is why to override the default settings of app theme, this got automatically added by Android as to a new theme only for this application. So this is an interesting thing that we will talk at length during later videos as to how you can customize your own themes for every individual page, for every individual section. You can reuse the themes across many different pages. So this is about Android Manifest. One important factor that you will be using Android Manifest for will be for permissions. Now every application that you use requires permissions from the user. The users have now been given the power to deny permissions to an application. So in case they deny any permission to the application, then you won't be able to use that feature of the user's phone. So there is a tag of users permission. And there are different permissions like camera, SMS, internet, SMS again, find location, record audio. So this will be used as and when you add new features to your application. Let's close all of this. The second folder that we have after manifest is the Java folder. You can see two test folders that is pre-entered into the system. You can delete them for now. And now the very first important folder is com.turtleye.first application. So this is the first stage of the starting of your application, where it has, this is the package name, and then it has two Java files, login activity / activity. Now what I recommend to all my students is that try to put your code inside a very modular format for easy use, because once you start developing big applications, you might be having up to 100 200 different Java files into your system, and it will be very difficult to go through all of them. So do the first level of classification, that is, click on com.turtleye.first application inside new and add a package. Here you write activity. So as I told you earlier, every activity is a different page. So I gave the package activity. I select these two activity and I just drag them inside activity. It will ask you that you want to move the specified classes to a specified directory. Now why is it asking you to do that? Because there are certain changes that needs to be automatically done, that is like references to links that you might have provided inside these applications, these codes, which might needs to get updated, because now this path is being moved inside the activity folder. So when I'm saying that I'm moving inside an activity folder, I'm actually changing the path of this file. So what Android helps us in doing is that every other place where this path might have been specified, it updates them accordingly. So you can see that inside this activity, the path has got updated. The package name is now com.turtleye.firstApplication.activity. Now similarly, you might be needing other packages. I believe that there is a little change done. This did not go accordingly as planned. It was supposed to go inside this. So you select activity refactor. Now it is actually changing my default name to activity because there is no other application present here. So let's say if I want supposedly some helper classes, these helper classes will be the ones which will be static classes being used to help me in developing the application. So I can have another package, let's say called helper. So I can develop a second package. Let's say if there are gonna be packages where I want to place all my static classes. So static is a system name, so it will not let you use that. You can use static underscore class, and I want right now this login and splash activity is outside in the main application. I'll just drag this inside activity. So you can see that now it has gone inside activity. So in this way you can make your app look modular and it is very easy to access. So you can find out what package is used for what purpose. You can define a package maybe as per the usability of your application, and then you can put your classes accordingly inside them. I'm not getting into the code of login activity right now. As you can see that this is a default few 5 to 6 lines that Google has automatically given to us, both inside splash activity and inside login activity. There are few extra lines of code inside login activity because again I told you that we chose different themes. Splash was an empty activity and login was a basic activity. I'll get into the details of the code later on. So after Java folder, this is where you wrote all your Java codes. There is the resources folder. Inside resources folder, the very first one is drawable. Now drawable holds all your images. So if you remember that there are images, a background, foreground that has been automatically created. If you can see very clearly over here, it looks like the Android the face of Android logo, and there is this background image that we saw. This got together combined to develop the launcher icons. Does that make sense? The background green screen and the Android logo. So Android saved both these files information inside drawable. Now whenever you want to add new icons, so let's say we go to drawable, new, vector asset, image asset. Image asset is used to add launcher icons, or you can add action bar icons, notification icons. You can choose images from your system, or you can choose from the default clip art folder. Okay. Here I would recommend not using the image asset, because image asset primarily uses the PNG format images. I would rather recommend using vector asset. What vector asset means, it helps you use an SVG files. SVG files are usually better in using images and icons. So here I can choose any image file. Let's say if I want a tick mark, a check mark on inside my application, which I want to use at a later time, I can do OK. The name will be IC underscore check underscore black underscore 24. Why 24? Because the default size of this checkbox will be 24 dp. In Android, unlike HTML, we don't use pixels. We use dp, which is density pixels. There's a difference in the ratio of pixel is to density pixel. So get used to using dp inside Android. And I do next. It finishes. So you can see that right here, the checkbox is here. This is the checkbox image, but right here, the entire code is written in the vector format. Now this vector format is very helpful, because next time if I want this checkbox to be a very giant huge checkbox of, let's say, 240 dp. So still you can see the same checkbox, but now my size has increased 10 times. So in case of vector icons, you can just modify the size to any size that you need, and it will get changed into that size without getting pixelated. So drawable folder holds all the images that we want to be using, all the images and icons that we want to be using inside this application. The next folder is the layout folder. If you remember that we had created two activities, login and splash, and while creating them, we also said that create their layout files. That means create the file that the user will be seeing. So these files got created for us. Let's start with activity underscore splash. What you can see right here is this is the code that is used to write this front end view. This code is in XML format. It is a custom devised XML of Android. It is not like the regular XML that you might see on the web. And on the right side, you can see a preview of how your code is turning out to be. So right here, you can see there's a text view which says hello world. And I can just change the name to hello Siddhant. Welcome to my domain. So it shows you a direct change into the layout, and it shows you how it will look on the actual application. See, this is looking like a normal phone with all the buttons. This is the name of the application that we have chosen. My time, battery. This is not the actual time and battery. Okay. And next is few information regarding this. If you get to the login activity, you see there is a little bit more codes present here. The layout is different. In Splash, it was a constant layout at the beginning. Here it is a coordinator layout. There are few extra elements like a floating button. This is the floating button right here. So it just floats at the bottom of the screen, and you can use it to do some user defined actions. Also, it made a sub file content login activity. This got automatically developed, and now this is inside constraint layout. So where is this being used? Inside the main folder login activity, there is an option of include. So whatever you write over here, whatever you design over here, so let's say if I just were to copy paste the text view that is there inside Splash, there is this text view right here. If I copy paste it over here, and now I just change it, welcome to login, and if I go into activity login, you see that this got automatically included right here. So this is a very easy way of subdividing all the different files. So different files can control different processes. So this is a layouts folder. It holds all the different layouts and the designs that you will be using, showing to the user. Next is the mipmap folder. Mipmap, as we saw, holds the launcher icons. That means the application icons of your final application that is being released, the round versions and also the square versions. You can see that is loading in different sizes. We will discuss about this in these sizes in a later video. Primarily this is being used for all the different phone versions, because there are different phones have different resolutions. So for good compatibility, your icon is converted into all the different versions so that on every phone your icon looks good. So mipmap holds the launcher values. Like final folder, values. Inside values, the first folder is colors. You can see that there are three color options already given right here. Now the first one is color primary. So this is like the main color of your application. How do you see that? If you remember, if you go into layouts folder and activity login, you can see the color over here. See the mouse where it's going? There is this color over here. This is the primary color of your application. Just above that, there is a color which is at a darker shade. This is the color of your status bar. The first one was the action bar. The second one is the status bar. So this gives you the status of your phone, your battery details, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and time details. So there is a different color. This is primary dark. So if you go into color folder, again, it is color primary dark. So this is the darker version of the original color primary. And then there is a third color, color accent. This color is usually used in all the highlights. So if you can see that this floating button right in the bottom of the page, this has been colored as the highlight color. It automatically picked up the highlight color. So here you can change the theme accordingly. If you want to change the color, let's say if I want my app to be in a different color, let's say I want it to be aqua blue, and I want this color to be in the shade of red. Okay, it's a very weird color that I'm choosing, but let's get to see what happens. So I've just changed all the three colors. So in the final application would look like this: red, blue, aqua blue, and yellow. So now this does look weird. That is why we have themes. We can choose and customize the themes so that your app looks beautiful. Now the second file is the diamonds file. Now throughout your applications, you might be using certain standard values. Like for here, there's a value called fab margin. Now where is this being used? If you go to login activity, the fab button that has, it is using a margin. Margin means the space it wants to get separated from the screen. So if I just remove this margin, you will be able to see that it goes right to the bottom. And if I bring back that margin, it moves a little up. So it is a standard value. It got defined in the diamonds folder. So diamond is a short for dimensions. So you can add as many static dimensions as you want so that you can reuse that throughout the application. This is very helpful if you're designing a big application again, because everyone using their own different sizes is gonna make the app look very haphazard. So if you have static values defined and everyone is going to be using the very same values, apps are gonna look beautiful. Next is the strings file. We have already looked into this file. It holds all the static string values which can be linked into other files. These can not only be linked into the XML files, that is your layout XML files, it can also be called inside the Java files. So the Java files that we have, login activity, slash activity, you can reference these static string values over there as well. Finally, the last file is styles file. The styles file is now the one that we have been seeing inside the manifest file. If you remember, there is the app theme.no action bar. So this was the styles that got predefined by Android Studio for us. So see, there are different styles that gets pre-added with all the predefined classes. You can add your own styles anytime you want. So we will discuss this again in a later video as to how styles are defined. So here are all our styles. So pretty much we have covered all the different folders, how to use these folders and files, and where each relevant document is placed. So you see, it's a very easy way in using these files and building huge applications. So until next video, see ya. We will be discussing about many other different features of Android. Bye bye.